Welcome to the Broncos Source Podcast.
Oh, I got caught up in our intro song there, Sean.
Yeah, I was doing it too.
Yeah, we're jamming out because let's just be honest, Sean. It's not just because of the intro song. It's because our Denver Broncos
Are in the
playoffs for the first time since 2015. What an accomplishment, right? So I'm getting ahead of myself. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on the Broncos Source Podcast, your favorite podcast out of all 150 of them that people do for the Denver Broncos. I am your host, Mile High Mez. Along with Sean, we're here to celebrate, Sean. We're here to praise the Broncos, and we're here to, I guess, talk about what a great accomplishment this season has been, starting with this last game, Sean, with Bo Nix just channeling his inner Peyton Manning, man. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's, my thoughts are you did exactly what you should do facing the team that you had to beat and a team that clearly was, preparing themselves for the next step. So, it had to be a win, first off, but it needed to be a decisive win. And obviously they were able to do that. And so, when you go into the game, and it's easy to say, oh, maybe we don't have to put the pedal to the gas and stuff. They're playing this guy and this guy and this guy, and they just didn't do that. They came out to do exactly what they wanted to do, exactly what they are, which is a playoff team. And you beat the teams that you're supposed to be. And yesterday with the Chiefs lineup, that's a team you're supposed to beat. And even at full strength, it's a team we should have beaten. So, we proved that the first time around. So, super happy for him. The performance, you alluded to it, by Bo Nix is justification to Broncos country. He's the guy. There's really no question about it. And there wasn't one before that, obviously, with the performance over the last, let's just call it 10 weeks or so. It's nice to continue to see it. It's nice to see the growth and the progression, and to culminate that with a playoff berth is what more could you ask for as a fan?
Yes, I'm glad you brought up the whole taking care of business part of it, because let me be clear to everyone who has this horrible, horrible take that the Chiefs don't care if the Bengals make the playoffs. They couldn't care less. They weren't playing yesterday's game with the Bengals in mind at all. So you can drop that nonsense. And if you're a Bengals fan out there and you're saying that they should have made the playoffs and the Broncos got in by beating a JV team, you should have beat the Patriots in the first week of the season. The Patriots, who won 4 games this year. I'm pretty sure when the Broncos played teams like that, like the Panthers and the Raiders and the teams that they needed to beat, the Chiefs' second string, they beat them. So maybe, you should have won the games that you were supposed to win. I don't know what else to say. Because I was one of those people. Oh, so go ahead, Sean.
No, I was just going to say, before you jump off the Bengals, people, remember those weeks when Joe Burrow went to all the press conferences and said, yeah, we just got to win out. And I think they lost like 3 or 4 straight games after that. So they had every opportunity to be a playoff team, and they didn't take care of business. So all the people you see are Chris Broussard, who's saying it's not fair and things like that. They had all the opportunities in the world to put themselves in a better position. And the Chiefs don't owe you a damn thing. You or your mayor and their stupid comments that buried him last year, riling up the Chiefs. They don't owe you anything. And to your point, you are exactly correct. That the Bengals were the last thing that they were thinking about when they came into that game yesterday.
Yeah, they were thinking about getting their second and third string guys some snaps and making sure that their starters stay healthy. That was it. And if they won the game along the way, then cool. But nobody cares about the Bengals. I'm just telling you right now. And I told you guys a couple weeks ago, even before we played the Bengals, that they are not a good football team. And they're not. They're not a good football team. If you don't make the playoffs, I'm sorry. You're just not it, And Joe Burrow was absolutely outstanding. But anyway, I just don't want people taking things away from the Broncos, because the Broncos, yes, and I've even said it too, yes, they beat up on bad teams, and yes, they struggled against teams with winning records, but they made the playoffs by doing exactly what they're supposed to do. So And on that note, Sean, can we talk about Mr. Bo Nix? I mean, we've talked about how many times I've been wrong about Bo Nix. And it's been, like you said, it's been made clear that he's the guy. I don't care who he was playing against yesterday. Even in preseason, guys don't go 18 for 18 in their first 18 passes, you know. So let's talk about Bo Nix and his, what was it, 89.7% completion percentage, which is a franchise record tie, right, with Peyton Manning. And then the most completions to start a game, which was 18. And then, Sean, we talked about before we met today, the Javonte Williams pass wide open in the flat. That would have been 19 for 19. Again, it doesn't matter who you're playing against. That's impressive. And let's give him his flowers, huh?
Yeah, and I think it's funny too when you've made the JV comment and things like that. These are still NFL football players, and these guys have been on the roster. It wasn't you and I coming off the practice squad coming up here to just have fun in some NFL game. These dudes are on the roster. Everybody's got injuries. These guys play spot here and there. So to just think that it's like, they just handed us the playoff game and things like that. We still had to go out there and beat NFL players, albeit, not top flight guys and starter guys. These are guys that are, on NFL rosters. And I know, you see those funny videos online of like Brian Scalabrine and people just talk trash about these backups in different sports. And then they just go out there and just make average Joes look like they've never picked up a sports ball, whatever it may be. So to think that these guys had no business being out there, or to your point, 18 for 18 against anybody at any level is fantastic, and to do that against NFL players it proves that Sean Payton was right, and most of us that were looking at it in the draft process were wrong. You and I talked about it all the way through the draft process. We wanted to trade down, get a quarterback next year. We've got too many holes, blah blah blah, and Bo Nix proved that we can do, we got the guy, and now we can plug those other holes with whatever draft pick we get, if that's in the 20s or obviously wherever that's going to end up in the playoffs. But there's something about that college experience, man. I think Bo Nix single-handedly is going to change how people look at the draft moving forward, especially with how NIL and things have changed it. But more so on your point to Bo Nix, he is the one that proved everybody wrong as a rookie. He's on a rookie deal, man. We've got 5 years of building a roster around a guy on a structured contract. And there's a window here, man. There's a window here that, when you pay Patrick Mahomes, when you pay Joe Burrow, when you pay Josh Allen, that those other players have to go away because there's just not enough money to go around. And now we have a playoff team in a rookie season. I know Russell Wilson's a sore subject around here sometimes, but that's how Seattle won a championship. They built an epic defense around a rookie quarterback, and Bo Nix he's got us. We've got 4 years here to build just an absolutely epic supporting cast around him on a pre-structured contract, and he's the real deal, man. I'm super excited about him. Super happy for his performance. Super happy to wear the colors and see the Broncos in the playoffs, man.
Yes, we would like to celebrate the Broncos making the playoffs. Tony, hit the song. Who's Tony? Anyway, I'm in a really good mood, man, because, Sean, we have suffered and suffered and suffered for the last 8 seasons. And it's not just been bad football. It's been unwatchable football.
It's a joke.
Yeah. On offense. It's like, and I kept thinking to myself, like, when are we going to get with the times? When are we going to start getting playmakers and running this offense and getting with the times, and stuff like that? And there's, in some ways, Sean Payton still doesn't kind of do that stuff, but he also probably doesn't have the personnel to do those things. But now those days are gone. And I think Tony Romo even said it on the broadcast. He was like, they're here to stay. And Jim Nantz agreed with him. And he's like, he's already done this before. He's built the team with his quarterback. And this is his Drew Brees. This is the new Drew Brees. So I think it's exciting times, man. I think you're right. I think the window is now opening. And I'm not going to say the Chiefs window is closing, But if they don't improve that team, especially offensively, man, I think that luck stuff is going to start turning around the other way. We did see, I think, was it you that shared with me that graphic about the 1 point or the 1 possession games? If they were reversed, the Broncos would have been the best team in the NFL and the Chiefs would have been the worst team in the NFL.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy, man?
Yeah.
So, and, I think with how young this Broncos team is, especially at quarterback, in that backfield in general, right? You can't help but be excited for the future here. And let's also take the time to give hats off to Garrett Bowles and to Cortland Sutton, because those dudes, at any time in the last 3 years, they could have left. They could have demanded to be traded. But these guys are loyal to the Denver Broncos. They stuck it out, and now here they are, man, in the playoffs, ready to ball out. And we're gonna do a Buffalo Bills preview podcast later this week. But if I was Buffalo, I'd be a little bit worried about Cortland Sutton maybe going off again on them, making some big plays, because that guy is ready. He's been ready for the playoffs for a long time. So I wanted to shout out those two guys. And Sean, who else should we shout out, man? Besides obviously Sean Payton, which we'll get into in a second. But what else? What other players did you want to bring up, man? It takes a village, right, for all these guys to get us to the playoffs. So
it's awesome that you brought up Sutton and Bowles. I mean, as a diehard Broncos fan, I wish that included Justin Simmons after everything he had been through. It would have been so cool for him to get over that hump. And of course, he goes to Atlanta, and then they blow it, and he misses it at the end. So it's a bummer, dude. He's such a good dude. I wish he was on the team, but that's not what we're here for. I mean, the big thing is, obviously those guys being the longtime sufferers, but just the Nick Bonitos and the Pat Surtains, Zach Allen. When you talk about, unsung heroes and things like that, we were predicted to win 5.5 games. They, all the people across the national media made fun of our roster. Everybody joked about how long Bo Nix was in college and how he used to play Justin Herbert in college and things like that. And these guys have been in the NFL for 4 or 5 years. And Bo Nix was the butt of all the jokes. Like, why were you in college so long? What's wrong with you? This roster is horrible. We're going to be a top 10, if not a top 5 pick. That's what everybody said from the get-go, and I don't think we were ever that low. I think you and I had our skepticisms about Bo and what we'd be able to do is in a rebuilding year. And I know Steven mentioned that word quite a few times kind of in our first, handful of weeks going here, but these guys went from, I can't remember the no-name joke they were given to everybody on the defense. But these guys they're household names and they're Pro Bowlers, man. Like you go from just being the butt of all jokes to having Pro Bowl starters kind of all over the place. Marvin Mims made a great name for himself. I thought he was going to be a bust, kind of KJ Hamler-esque, and he completely changed it around. His work in the backfield, special teams, and now as a receiving option, that deep threat option, that's a game changer, man. Being able to take the top off the offense, the 67 air yard throw the week before, that dime across the middle a handful of weeks ago, just those types of plays, man. Those are like things that as a fan, especially if we take this farther than anyone expects us to into the playoffs, those are the types of plays. That's the Tim Tebow to DT type plays. You know what I mean, man? Where you look back on a season and you just remember that those types of moments that you just don't expect to have. Like nobody thought we were going to win that game. Tebow hits DT and we go on to win. Those are the types of things. And hopefully we have the playoff moment this year. And obviously we'll talk about that, like you said. But the thing is, like, we had cool moments this year.
We had many moments, and I'd like to reel off some names here, Sean. Starting with Vance Joseph. He comes in last year, it decides to be the defensive coordinator in a place where he used to be the head coach, which is just, it takes a guy of great integrity to do something like that, right? Great character. He comes in here and he kind of runs his half Ejiro Evero defense and half Vance Joseph defense. And then this year he comes in and he says, no, we're going to do it my way. We're going to blitz. We're going to play man coverage. We're going to develop you guys. Nick Bonito, we're going to get rid of these other pass rushers that that are in your way, and Benito and Cooper, you guys are it. And let's take it the next step. And he did that. And this defense, man, we could have had 3 Defensive Player of the Year nominees. I think we do have 3 Defensive Player of the Year nominees. We got Surtain, right? We've got Zach Allen, and we got Nick Benito. Those dudes are absolute game wreckers, game changers. I mean, and Zach Allen, he looked like J.J. Watt this year, man. And without him, our defense wasn't the same when we played against the Raiders, right? They looked completely different. Riley Moss, obviously we know what our defense looked like without him. And so there's so many dudes we can shout out. And you got to talk about Estime, on offense, just working his way through the fumble problems and having a good attitude about it and carrying a football around the facility. And doing things like that, and Bo Nix being the first guy in, last guy out, demanding the room and getting it in his first season. Cortland Sutton, like I said, sticking it out, man, and not leaving the Broncos and coming along for the ride so that we can make the playoffs. He was huge this year. He was huge last year too, and then just the offensive line was outstanding all season long. Bo Nix was probably, if not the best protected quarterback in the league. He was one of the most, top 5 protected quarterbacks in the entire NFL. And so there's so many reasons that the Broncos are going to the playoffs, are going to shock the world on Sunday. And there's just so many there's so many people that we have to thank for this great season, man. And we couldn't do it without any of them, but it starts with who? Sean Payton, right? And I was the biggest detractor of Sean Payton pretty much all season. There was a lot of moments where it was like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? Why aren't we using this guy, that guy? And there's a method to his madness. And so to see his plan come to fruition, to your point, Sean, in a year where we're under a bunch of dead cap, we don't have the talent that we're going to have in the future. And for him to take this team to the playoffs is nothing short of outstanding. Like you said, Vegas and everyone else and the ESPN talking heads, 5 wins, 4 wins, 3 wins, first pick in the draft, all that stuff. And here we are in the playoffs. And I'd like to give a shout out to George Payton as well, because yes, he made the worst trade any of us have ever seen. But, it takes a lot. It takes another man of integrity. It takes mental fortitude to stick this thing out and stay with us and tell the fans, look, I'm sorry. I made a bad mistake, but let me rebuild this team again in 1 year with Sean Payton. And they've done it, man. You look at the signing of Cody Barton. When we signed that guy, I was like, huh? What? Brandon Jones, I was like, I mean, he's a nice player, but what are we doing? Like, just bring back Simmons, And every single guy on this team has played a role and done something that has helped us along the way. And so I think it's just been outstanding by Peyton and Peyton. Of course, ownership putting us in this position as well. And I don't know, man, it's just nothing but positive vibes, right? And no matter what happens this weekend, like you said, we were supposed to win 5 games. 4 games, whatever it is. And so for this team to be in the playoffs, like we're talking about before the meeting or before the podcast here, step 1 of this process is complete now. You could lose 70-0 to Buffalo. The first step is complete, Sean, in rebuilding this team.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up Sutton, because it's not only just his statistical season, but it's what he did for Bo Nix, and to be just such a reliable person. And you see it all the time, right? Like, look at the Dolphins. Everybody's talking about how great they were a few seasons ago. And here we are, and Tyreek Hill's, wants out or whatever it is. And just when you talk about integrity and you talk about people, culture, things like that, like Sutton's been through it, man. He's been bad seasons, injuries, people saying he's not this, he's not that. Broncos fans getting on him, you know what I mean? Saying, why is this guy still here? Blah, blah, blah. And to come out and get 1,000 yards and to be that dude, didn't say a word after the game where he got no targets, came out and just went on a tear after that and just absolutely killed it. Losing Alex Singleton and having dudes step up, like you're saying, Cody Barton, Justin Sternad, Cooper getting a contract this year. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
man.
that's a late round pick that turned into a dude. Franklin Myers, what a trade that ended up being as a rotational piece.
Yeah,
As
another
a
name I forgot.
Yeah, as a pass rusher, dude. Just like, and the funny thing is when you talk about all that dead cap money, right? And we're just like, oh, we're gonna fill it with these guys and these guys. Well, look at the guys that we found. And now you can really, the money that we have, you can find some dudes. You don't have to plug as many holes as you thought. You're gonna have all your own draft picks back. We're in a perfect position. And I think I saw the first mock today, getting the tight end out of Michigan. I'm not a big college guy for the
Colston
names.
Loveland.
Exactly. You pick up somebody like that, dude, and then you have the cap space to go, fill a few holes. This is the opportunity now, man, and to get a winning season, which I think in and of itself would have been, a win, even if we didn't make the playoffs. So to get that first hurdle out of the way so long ago, weeks ago, we were guaranteed to have, a winning season, and then to get the playoff berth and all you have to do is get in, man. Anything can happen. Worse teams have won playoff games than the Denver Broncos. You know what I
Won
mean?
Super Bowls.
Yeah, exactly. So, just get in the tournament, man. And anything can happen. And I know we kind of skipped over it in the benching of the Chiefs players and stuff, but there's a method to that, man. Look at the Packers game yesterday and them losing Christian Watson for the season and Jordan Love getting injured. You know what I mean? So, and all those things, and I obviously that's kind of rewinding a little bit, but also it's like anything can happen. Who knows what happens in that Buffalo game, and those types of things. So the fact that you get in and you give yourself an opportunity with this team, an opportunistic defense that leads the league in sacks, you put a lot of pressure in the backfield. You can beat anybody. A fumble here, an errant interception there, and anything can happen. So, there's so many good things to say. We could probably ramble on about 17 games this season and find something to be happy about in almost all of them. But it's crazy, man. Like I know we were talking about it coming out of, I think we were about 500. I can't remember what game it was. And I was sitting on this podcast and I was saying, we are going to make the playoffs. We're going to go 3-0 or 4-0 in these next 4 games. We're going to come out of here. We are like a lock. And then one game after the next, we win it. And then we're just, we're in a good position and we controlled our own destiny and they took care of business, man. Super awesome.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up the defense. 60 sacks for the Broncos this year, a franchise record. And this is a team we're talking about that has had Von Miller and, that 2015 defense with Derek Wolfe and, what was his name? Malik. Oh man, I'm spacing on the name. Malik Jackson.
Yeah.
Yeah. And DeMarcus Ware. We've had some
Shaq
dudes,
Barrett.
man.
Yeah.
We've had some guys here. And for this team, the no-name defense to set records is just another nod to how well Vance Joseph has coached this team this year. I don't see a fit out there. And maybe I'm just being naive, but I don't see a fit out there for him to be a head coach. So hopefully he'll be here another year. If not, Jim Leonard can step in and I'm sure he can run, the same type of defense here. But one thing I wanted to talk about too, you were talking about the window with Bo Nix. And dude, let me tell you, this draft coming up with wide receivers is absolutely loaded. There are going to be 2 rounds of top quality receivers for the Broncos to pick from. So you get Colston Loveland in the first round. You're still going to be able to get a receiver in the second round, or you get a receiver in the first round. Maybe you trade up and get your tight end. I think Sean Payton is going to be super, super aggressive in trying to get Bo Nix, his guy, some weapons, and it's going to be exciting, man. So hats off to our team. We're excited. We're happy. There is nothing negative to say about this team. There was nothing negative to say about the game itself. The Broncos absolutely took it to the Chiefs because they had to. And, man, if they get that kind of effort in the playoffs, like you said, anything could happen. And so on that note, I would like to tell you guys that Sean and I will be doing a podcast that will preview the playoff game against the Buffalo Bills. And then the week after that, we will preview the Denver Broncos at the Kansas City Chiefs as well in the second round of the playoffs. So we don't have that many listeners yet, so I can do stuff like this. Okay. Nobody's going to come after me, I don't think. But and we can touch on it just a little bit here. But the Broncos have the best pass rush in the NFL. They have one of the best, if not the best, offensive lines in the NFL. You have both lines of scrimmage that you can control in any given game. Why not? Right? Why not? And right now, dude, it's the time for hope. Let's get high on the hopium, people. We've got, 5 days, 6 days till the game? 5 days. 6 days?
It's late. It's 5 days. It's late. It's
nighttime. Okay. So for these next 5 days, we're the world beaters. We are house money, and we are coming into Buffalo with nothing to lose as the team that nobody is going to pick, Sean. Nobody's going to pick the Broncos. But let's not forget, Sean, that this team went into Buffalo last year and won a game on Monday Night Football with a worse Broncos team by far. And I'm not sure what the weather's going to look like. We'll get into that on the podcast, but I'm optimistic because why not, right? And if we go in there and we get our doors blown off, then that's just part of the process. Or if we lose a heartbreaker, part of the process, whatever. But I think we should have a lot of hope coming into the game for the whole week and wear our Broncos hats and jerseys and shirts and tattoos and everything, everything proudly. Put the Bronco flags up on the car. Have a good time with it. Enjoy the moment because we're here. We're here to stay. This is only the first part of the whole process. And like Sean and I have been talking about, this team will be even better next year and the year after that and the year after that because they're going to have money to play with. They can draw free agents here now. They can say, hey, look, we've got Bo Nix. We've got Sean Payton. We got this defense. Come play offense for us and let's win a Super Bowl. They can say stuff like that now. So nothing but good things to say, positive vibes, Sean. And I'm really, really looking forward to the game this weekend and us doing the podcast to preview that game as well.
Yeah, it's funny you say like the flags and your jerseys and things like that. For so many years, it's been like, oh, how about that Paxton Lynch pick, or how about that Drew Lock pick? And you wear your Broncos stuff out as we do as fans, regardless of the record and things. And I, just kind of like the backhanded compliments and jokes. And I was ironically, I was at the Cowboys Commanders game this week and just joking with people who haven't been alive to see your team win a Super Bowl or do anything of note, So for all those people that have hated on the Broncos, I have been alive for 3 Super Bowls and I have proudly been old enough to watch all of those and remember all those games. So, it's nice to get back to that and get back. This is a proud franchise. This is a fan base that travels well all over the country. I went to the Texans game in Houston last year with the Broncos, and despite the loss, you could just hear the incomplete chants and the Broncos chants and stuff in enemy territory. And that's the type of fan base that we are. We deserve this as a fan base. We deserve this team and the opportunity and the hope and all this stuff. So, it's really cool to, I don't want to say I've ever not felt good about wearing these. I still wear them all the time, even when we were picking in the top 10. But it's just really cool to be able to have those football conversations with people, talk to you on something like this, and be relevant and matter, and look forward to not only Sunday, but whatever happens after Sunday, whether that's AFC semifinals or offseason plans, whatever it is going to be nothing but positivity for the Broncos after such a great season.
Yeah, man. I'm glad you brought that up. The Broncos, and I tell people this all the time and they roll their eyes, but the Broncos are a top 10 NFL franchise of all time. They win. They're known for winning. The fans are spoiled. We are very spoiled. That's why these last 8 years have been terrible. And like you said, we travel well. And I see Bronco fans wear their stuff all the time, man, win or lose. We love our team no matter what. And it's just good to finally be back where we belong, which is in relevancy. And like I said, it's only the start, man. So I'm looking forward to moving forward. The one thing I want to say real quick before we wrap this up is I need to correct myself from earlier. 63 sacks this year from the Denver Broncos defense. And so that defense is what we're going to ride into Kansas City, in my opinion. But that's just a preview of that next podcast as we dive into the game against the Bills. So just like we've been talking about, Tony, hit the song. You know, one day we'll have a guy that hits the song, Sean, and it won't be awkward.
You got to click it now.
But yeah, just like I said, be happy, rep the Broncos everywhere you go. High five another Broncos fan, get pumped up for the game, watch it with as many people as you can, and just enjoy it. Enjoy in the moment, no matter what happens, because for the past 8 years, we've been dying for this to happen, right? For the Broncos to be back. So we are in good spirits. We're ready to shock the world and maybe even twice. Who knows? But for my co-host, Sean, I am Mile High Mez. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Broncos Source podcast. We love you guys. We love the Broncos. Let's go win a playoff game. All right. Have a good night.